Hello everyone, Chris here, and yesterday I did a whole night of solo queue. The reason behind this daring adventure was to try and see if I could find the best build for solo queue. I ended up doing 20 games total, and just to give you a quick summary already, this was the result. I had 4 escapes, 3 killers DC'd, 3 survivors DC'd, 3 survivors giving up on first hook, got slugged for the 4K 3 times, 1 till I bled out, got camped and tunneled once myself, and witnessed 3 other survivors getting tunneled and or camped. So for this video, I will be taking you through this one night of solo queue, where I tried different builds and perks to see which worked the best. And at the end, I will be presenting the best perk setup that you can bring into a solo queue by my findings. But without further delay, let's get right into the video. First, to give you a bit of context, I started playing Dead by Daylight about 9 months ago. I define myself as a killer main, and as for survivor side, I probably have, let's say, 100 hours total. So I'm not a good survivor, I'm not an experienced survivor, I still do a lot of mistakes and are still not too familiar with all the tile sets and the loops. So let's say I represent the average or below average survivor. So for game number 1, I went up against a Ghostface at Larry's. I started the evening with some perks that I felt was underused and that might benefit from the map itself, hence me bringing a map offering. The perks I used was No Matter, Boil Over, Windows of Opportunity, and Resilience. The thought was to make me hard to hook, seeing there are so many small door openings and hallways on this map, and No Matter would make sure that I didn't just get slugged on the ground instead. Resilience was there to give us the extra edge for both repair speed and vault speed, and Windows to give us full overview of where we could run, seeing we only have one health state. The game ended up being quite decent. The Ghostface tried to slug us both in the end, but with the No Matter power, I managed to elude the killer and escape the trial. A decent first start. Second game, I went up against a Huntress at Colvin Farms. This time I tried to bring a set of new perks and ended up with Red Herring, Quick and Quiet, Will Make It, and Renewal. So since I had Renewal, that will make me able to heal myself by going into a locker for 8 seconds after healing another survivor a full health state. And Will Make It, that makes me heal really fast when I unhook a survivor. So I went for the first unhook, but the survivor absolutely didn't want to get healed, so yeah, screw that I guess. I tried once again with another survivor, but the Huntress really liked the survivor for some reason and came right back to get him. And once again, at which time he decided to DC instead. It all fell apart after that. For the third game, I went up against a knight at the Temple of Purgation. I tried the same build again to see if I could get some more value out of the perks this time. Nothing special happened in this game, but it's a perfect time to talk about one of, in my opinion, the biggest problems in solo queue: player inefficiency. When I died, we were down to 1 gen left, and unfortunately I stopped recording. I then spectated for a while, and I was witnessing this amazing thing, looping the knight around the map twice for several minutes. I started recording again because in the meantime, you would guess that Michaela was doing the last gen, right? Nope. She was just walking around doing absolutely nothing. So a question for you: how many times have you been in a game and either A, you get chased by the killer and run him around for 2 to 3 minutes and realizing no gens have been done? Or B, you have done 1 or 2 gens by yourself and those are the only gens done at this point. Then you get into a chase, and the longer the chase lasts, the more you start to realize that you did those 2 gens alone. So what were the other survivors doing in the meantime? And what are they doing now? I have no counts for how many times, due to kindred, bond, or even after I'm dead and spectating, how often I see so many survivors doing absolutely nothing but walking around. And that is really frustrating. Anyways, let's see the next game. Game number 4, and we went up against Ababa at Colvin Farms. This time I brought in Deja Vu, Wiretap, Prove Thyself, and Sprint Burst. Now, luckily for me, this was a face camping Baba, and I was not the first victim. And neither was I the second victim, so I did what any survivor should do against a face-camping Bubba. I did the gens as fast as I could and escaped. Game number 5. This time we are at Macmillan's against another Bubba, but this time he didn't face camp. There wasn't really much to talk about in this game. It was a pretty normal game. The killer played fair, the survivors did their best. I was about to escape, but right as the gate was to be opened, I died. Game number 6, still going with the same build. This time it's a night at the Area of Crows, and this is where things start to become a bit spicy. This was our first time witnessing tunneling for this evening, and spoiler alert, it won't be the last. The knight was actively trying to tunnel the survivor out of the game, at the point where I had to sacrifice myself for the survivor to get away. That ended up with me in the basement. Now, what is the knight best at? Camping. As you can see, the knight was just spamming his guards to guard the entrance to the staircase, and he was proxy camping in the main building. I went to second stage before I got saved, but that didn't really help as I got tunneled out of the game straight after. Shit happens. Game number 7. A clown at Dead Dog Saloon. After being tunneled out of the last game, I decided to bring another build into this game. Deliverance, Dead Hard, Off the Record, and Windows of Opportunity. This ended up being a really tough game, but I thought both the killer and survivors played really well through the entire match, but in the end, the clown won. Game number 8, and we have a Myers at Colwyn Farms. I brought the same build, seeing as I did feel a bit more confident with this one in the last round. His tactics seemed to be getting into tier 3, then try to slug as many people as possible. It worked out decently for him, but in the end, he decided to DC. Game number 9 to 11 was nothing special, so I just summarized them quickly. Number 9 was a spirit at Colwyn Farms. I used Alert, Lithe, Deliverance, and Off the Record. It ended up being a 4-man escape. Number 10 was a Pinhead who DC'd after a 1-minute chase with me. Number 11 was another Myers at the Backwater Swamps. Normal match, 2-man escape, but I died at the finish line. Then came game number 12. Oh boy. A Huntress at the Shattered Square. I had 2 of my teammates kill themselves on first hook, which meant that this game was practically over. Well, I still wanted my blood points, so I kept going. Well, this Huntress wanted her 4k. As I was slugged on the ground while she tried to get Nia, the game lasted for another 5 minutes. 5 minutes! And most of the time I was the one slugged on the ground. It ended up with me bleeding out. I guess some killers just really wanted that 4k. Game number 13. Wraith at Backwater Swamp. After getting slugged on the ground till I bled out, I decided to go with Unbreakable this round, together with Dead Hard, Decisive Strike, and Off the Record. Some of you might see a pattern of where this video is going. Well, it didn't really help as we had a survivor DC as they were down for the second time in the match. From there on, it just fell apart and I died. Game number 14. Ghostface at the Crotus Pen Asylum. We had a survivor trying to kill themselves on first hook, and after that he seemed to just give up. It was a tough game, and yet again we had a killer who really wanted that 4k. From Bill first went down, the game lasted for another 3.5 minutes. Eventually, we both died. Game number 15. Well, I'll admit that bringing Decisive Strike, Unbreakable, Off the Record, and Dead Hard does make you feel really confident. I don't have the skill level to play around those perks, so I decided to go another route, gen rushing. I brought the meanest gen build I know, which I discussed more of why this build is the best in my repair video. We went up against the Myers at midwich, but as the first gen popped, he DC'd. Game number 16. Plague at Coldwind Farms. This was a pretty even game, but when we were down to 3 gens with 4 hooks, the survivor who hadn't been hooked once this game went down and DC'd. And yeah, it all just crumbled from there. Game number 17. Wesker at the Red Forest. This was a really good game, and the team played really well together. I'm just happy with how I managed to loop Wesker for a bit, and it was a really intense endgame chase, but he caught me at the finish line and it ended up being a 3-man escape.
Let's finish this.
Game number 18. Another Myers at Colwyn Farms. Another decent game, balanced, fair, and it ended up being a 2-man escape. Nothing really special to say about this one. Game number 19. Another night at the Area of Crows. And, well, he tunneled and camped the Leon in this game to the point where he DC'd. He then pretty much did the same with Ash as well, so even if we were in fact effective on the gens, it seems that it doesn't really make a difference as long as the killer decides to actively tunnel someone out of the game. Oh, well, as a sweet reminder, I'm back to the Dead Hard, Decisive Strike, Off the Record and Unbreakable build for game number 20. And this time I might as well bring a medkit with double charges and a map offering. And for the last game we are up against a Blight at the Red Forest. This was a pretty decent map. Good survivors, good killer, he had some nasty add-ons, but all in all we did really good. I'm still not good with this build as I could probably get more use out of Off the Record, but even if I'm not the best survivor, this does give me more confidence in a match. I ended up biting the bullet at the finish line, but it's a 2-man escape and I will call that a success. And there you have it. We went from trying out some underused perks without success, and as we experienced more and more tunneling and camping, we eventually ended up with the typical meta build. We ventured into the Genrish build with good success until the tunneling caught up with us again, and so we ended up with this recommended setup for solo queue. Unbreakable, Decisive Strike, Off the Record, and Dead Hard, with a double charge medkit and maybe a map offering. There we go, the best solo queue build. Now this video could be kind of a parody video, and it sort of turned into one, even though I never planned it this way. But with the current state of the game, this is just what happened. I'm going to end this video with some thoughts of why I think solo queue is so difficult and challenging. Now this is just my personal opinion, but I don't think this game is designed around people playing in solo queue, but rather survive with friends. Thankfully, the devs are slowly seeing this and are implementing new features to make solo queue a bit better, though I don't think it will help a lot. In my opinion, there are a few things that make solo queue very difficult. Number 1. Lack of communication. While in a match, you have no way of communicating except using the point or follow emote, which frankly doesn't really have a huge impact on the gameplay. Having no means of communication means that in solo queue, as soon as you load into the match, you are on your own. Should there be a feature where you could see the perk loadouts for the other survivors? Maybe. Should we have a quick bar menu with some easy commands? Maybe. The only way of communicating right now is in the pre-game chat, which sadly no one ever uses, and if you are on console, you can't use it anyway. Number 2. Not playing like a team. Now, I don't blame anyone for doing this, as it's a natural thing in a solo queue to think about yourself first. Which means that you will bring perks that will ensure that your own chance of survival is higher, and perks that will benefit yourself. Which at the same time is kind of contradictory, seeing as you'll have a higher chance of survival if you all try to benefit from each other. Having 4 survivors who are in for their own makes it really hard to cooperate in this game. But as I said, I can't blame anyone for doing this, as it's only natural. Number 3. Tunneling and camping. This is not solely a solo queue problem, but in most cases, solo queue players have no means of defending themselves against this type of playstyle, as some coordinated survive with friends could have, and so tunneling and camping becomes a far bigger issue for solo queue players. I'm not going to talk about my thoughts about tunneling or camping in this video, I'd rather talk about that in some other video, but related to this video, this is a pretty huge problem for solo queue players. Number 4. Survivor inefficiency. As I said, how many of you have been in a game and either you get chased by the killer and run him around for several minutes and realize that no gens have been done, or that you just have this constant question in your mind of what have the other survivors been doing? Why are no gens being done, and why haven't I seen Meg all game? Now do take into consideration that you never know who you are playing with. Maybe the player is new, maybe they try their best, or maybe they are just having a bad day. Even if it might be frustrating at times, still be nice to each other. Number 5. The strength of the 3-gen. More than often you end up in a 3-gen situation while playing solo queue, and many killers actively play towards securing a 3-gen from the get-go, which makes it really hard to play around this when you have no means of communicating. Certain killers with certain 3-gens make it next to impossible to win the game, no matter how well you played up to that point. Or in a best case scenario, you'll still win the game about 30 minutes later. So you could say it's partially a game design problem and partially a player mentality problem. One of them we can't do anything about, but as I said, luckily some changes to the game are coming. The player mentality we can do something about, at least towards ourselves, and everything starts with ourselves. If I go into a game, I try to do the best that I can to contribute towards the win conditions, meaning if I'm not being chased or not going for an unhook, I am doing a gen. If things are looking rough, I hang in there even if I'm just hanging on the hook. It does make a difference if I'm still hanging there or if I give up and kill myself, as at that point the killer doesn't need to consider you at all. But with that said, even when you go into solo queue with a healthy mindset and a let's do it attitude, that doesn't always help as you have no control over your teammates or to what extent killers will go to secure themselves a win. So what is my conclusion to this experience? As expected, solo queue is rough, there is no denying that. I fear it will always be rough, and as I said earlier, this game is not designed around solo queue. As long as people see this as a competitive game, a killer who goes all in to win will most often do so against a non-coordinated solo queue team with no means of communicating between themselves, or no means of fighting a killer who wants to tunnel someone out of the game. Bringing perks like Dead Hard, Off the Record and Decisive Strike can prolong this and make it harder for the killer to tunnel you, but even this would still require some teamwork and coordination or efficiency for you to still be able to win the game. If you combine no means of communicating, no means of actually being able to cooperate during the game without specific perks like Kindred, Bond, or even Deja Vu as to prevent a 3-gen situation, and the strength and efficiency of a tunneling killer, you end up with a really challenging gameplay that I see no real solution to right now. But on the other side, if more people would start making an effort to cooperate, using the pre-game chat to tell your perk loadouts, be efficient on gens or whatever is needed during the game that is benefiting the team, having a team mentality and making an effort into making this game more enjoyable for everyone, then maybe it doesn't have to be this bad. Wishful thinking, you might say? Yeah, probably, but if you are not willing to make an effort, then who will? So as my final words, I just want to tell you that if you do feel like solo queue sucks the fun out of the game for you, or that you don't find enjoyment in playing the game this way, there are a lot of streamers out there with Discord servers where you can find like-minded people to play with. I knew what I was getting myself into, but all in all, it was actually a fun journey that gave me some insight and context to the survivor's choice of perks. Even after this experience, I will still always try to do my best to make sure that people are enjoying playing Dead by Daylight and keep promoting a healthy relationship to the game. But enough talk, leave a comment down below if you have any other experiences with solo queue, or if you think solo queue is hard for other reasons than stated in this video. And until next time, cheerio!